Nutrition on a budget, that's a great question because artists, especially when you're starting out, you might not always have a steady stream of income every month that you can rely on. There might be months where you have a lot of gigs and you make a really comfortable living, but there might be months where the phone is not ringing or you're recovering from an injury and you're not getting as much money as you expected. And what happens oftentimes when we're in those situations is that things like our nutrition, our diet, and our health might take a backseat. It's important that even in situations where your budget might be doing this, you are still able to have a diet that is going to sustain you. Because here's the thing, when you take care of your body's going to take care of you. And that's going to be reflected in your art, which is really important. What we're going to talk about in this video is 5 ideas about eating healthy and on a budget. Idea number 1 would be to prioritize food that is whole and unprocessed. And here I'm thinking, for example, grains. Think about brown rice, oats, quinoa. Those are really nutrient dense. Also think about legumes. So red beans, chickpeas, lentils, they have a ton of proteins and fiber. Or think about root vegetables, for example, carrots, potatoes, sweet potatoes. Those are really filling. So why am I suggesting these? Well, for one, they're very nutrient dense, as I said before. What this means is that you're going to get more nutrients per calorie. Another way to say this is that you need to eat less to feel full. Imagine when you have breakfast at home and maybe you have oatmeal or maybe you have eggs or avocado versus the day that you rush out the door and you grab a muffin and a coffee from a coffee shop. If you had the oatmeal or the eggs or the avocado, you're going to be full for most of the day. Whereas if you had the muffin, you're going to be hungry immediately, right? Because that has a ton of sugar as well. So nutrient-dense food is always going to make you feel satiated and full versus other types of food. It's also more cost-effective. Think about a muffin, which is several dollars, versus if you have a hard-boiled egg or if you have an oatmeal at home, which might be 20 cents, 30 cents. Whole foods, for example, beans, rice, chickpeas, you can often buy these in bulk. They tend to be cheaper, right? You can buy them in bags of 2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. Aside from being able to buy these items in bulk, you have to remember that beans and rice, they don't require a lot of processing, they don't have a lot of marketing, there's no sponsorships. All of that money that is not being used to market a product, you're saving as a consumer. Another thing is that they have a long shelf life. So these are foods that you can have in your pantry for several months and you're good to go. Another important thing is that they're very, very versatile. You can use these foods in different dishes and in different situations. Let's go back to our carrots, for example. I always buy carrots because I keep convincing myself that I'm going to have carrots in my salad every day. Oftentimes, what happens is that I do that the first day and then I put them at the back of the fridge, remember them a few days later when they're all soggy, and I don't want to eat them in a salad. But I'm not going to throw them out, right, because they're still edible. Because carrots and potatoes are very versatile, what you could do is make a puree out of those carrots. You could put them in an oven, do a side dish, use them for a soup, for example. And the final thing has to do with your health. When you eat food that is whole and unprocessed, you know what you're putting in your body. Let's think about a potato. Maybe you like to eat French fries. So you have the option of using frozen French fries that have a ton of chemicals and additives and things you don't even know, versus you buying a potato, cleaning it, cutting it, and frying it. In the second instance, you know exactly what's going into your body. These are some reasons why I suggest eating whole and unprocessed foods. The second idea is to buy seasonal and local produce. Nowadays, when we walk into a supermarket, everything is available all year long. Whether you want a mango in February or in September or in May, it's always available for you. But that's not how nature operates. Vegetables, fruit, etc., they follow seasons. You might have root vegetables like squash, carrots in the fall, for example. You might have green vegetables in the summer. Try to eat based on the season because that's when those vegetables and those fruits are going to be at their ripest. They're going to have most nutrients, and also it's going to be cheaper for you. Also think about our ancestors. Our ancestors didn't have all the food all the time. They would eat in season. And that's good for your body as well, right? So when peppers are available, eat peppers. When it's strawberries, eat strawberries. Try to train yourself or get used to eating seasonally. That's not only going to be good for your pocket, it's also going to be good for your health. Another thing that you could consider doing is to join a CSA, a community-supported agriculture, or a food co-op, a food cooperative. Here, you essentially have the opportunity to buy your produce directly from a local farm. That's going to have many advantages. For one, it's going to be cheaper. Two, you're supporting your local community, which is great. You're going to reduce your carbon footprint because they only deliver to near areas. And also, it's likely that they won't have as many chemicals as larger infrastructures. And finally, if there are specific products that you use a lot, for example, like herbs, you might consider growing your own herbs, even if you live in a tiny apartment, or buy an herb plant that could give you herbs for months. For example, I love basil and cilantro, and I used to buy them, out of season, and it was super expensive. And then I decided to buy a basil plant, which was only about $4. That gave me basil for months. And then when the season ended, I got an ice cube tray, filled it with olive oil, packed it with these basil leaves that were left over. In the winter, when I want to have basil, I can just thaw one of those ice cubes with olive oil and basil and have my fresh basil without spending a lot of money. A third idea would be to be strategic with your shopping. First of all, try to buy generic and store-bought products whenever you can. This is going to save you a lot of money. Another idea, shop during off-peak times. Supermarkets usually mark down items like dairy products, perishables, meat, bread towards the end of the day. If you need to buy bread, for example, just go to your shop at the end of the day, buy a ton of bread, freeze it, and then you have a stock there for future. Also, make sure you understand the layout of your supermarket. So when you go into a supermarket, the items that are going to hit you immediately are the most expensive ones. They're the flashiest, the sexiest, the ones with most sugar. Make sure you walk to the side of the supermarket. That's where you can find the produce. That's where you can find dairy products. Also, when you grab an item from a shelf, remember that anything that is at eye level is always going to be more expensive than anything that is in a bottom shelf or in a top shelf. Don't forget to look at the clearance section. So every supermarket has a clearance section where they have items that are about to expire, or that maybe the packaging is a little bit damaged and they have to mark it down. So make sure you look at that. Another idea, look at holiday sales. So sometimes businesses bring in a lot of produce which they end up not selling. Here in the United States, for example, during Thanksgiving, supermarkets will bring in a lot of turkeys and they will not sell them all. The day after Thanksgiving and 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, turkey is very cheap because those supermarkets are trying to get rid of that excess turkey. Another idea is to look at apps and websites to compare prices, and also make sure that you take advantage of any coupons that your supermarket might offer. A fourth idea is to plan your meals ahead of time. With that, you're going to accomplish many things. The first thing is that you're going to reduce buying on impulse. Sometimes, if you get home at night and you don't have any food, the thing that we all do is that we just go on a shopping spree at the supermarket and we will buy things that are not healthy, that are expensive, or we might end up eating pizza outside. All of that is very expensive and it's not healthy for you. So if you plan your meals ahead of time, you're going to save money, and it's also going to be better for your health. Another great advantage of reducing trips to the supermarket and just planning your meals ahead and going once is that you're going to save on gasoline, you're going to save on parking or bus fare, and you're also going to save on time that you could be spending working on your art, developing your brand, etc. So again, another reason why planning ahead is important. And then the other thing is you're going to reduce dining out and eating convenience foods. All of these are very expensive, and having a meal plan is definitely going to cut down on that. Ultimately, this is going to have a really positive impact on your health. The final idea, learn to cook and cook at home and batch cook. I definitely recommend, if you are able to purchase something like a slow cooker or a pressure cooker or rice cooker, anything that allows you to make food in bulk that you can freeze in portions so that you always have food available for you, I would definitely recommend that. That would allow you to make stews and soups and, lentils or legumes that are very healthy for you. It's also going to be more time efficient. So you will have to spend some time in the kitchen every week to prepare your meals, but then once you have them prepared and you can freeze portions, then you don't have to waste more time. Also think about energy and efficiency, right? If you're using the oven for anything, don't put the oven on 5 times per week. Make sure you have everything in all the racks in your oven and just cook once. That's going to save you time. That's also going to save you a little bit of money on your electric bill. And finally, think about your leftovers and how you can repurpose them. If you bought strawberries and they've gone a little bit mushy, just freeze them and use them to make smoothies. Or if you have scraps of vegetables, you may use them to make a natural stock for soup, for example. Always make sure that you don't throw food away, but just repurpose it and use it creatively in other dishes. So these were 5 ideas of how you can eat on a budget and stay healthy.